Hey, Trojan family, what is up? Welcome to the USC LAFB show live Tuesday, noon Pacific time here in Los Angeles. Thank you, as always, for making this a part of your day. Hope everyone's doing well. Wait till some people get in here, but good show today. It's the bye week. I will be at practice here in just a couple hours. We will hear from Lincoln Riley and some offensive players, so I'll definitely have some content and reporting back after that, whether it be this evening or tomorrow morning. Make sure you're subscribed here to the USC LAFB channel to get all those daily video updates. We'll get, obviously, Coach Riley's interview up this evening and anything in the future. So hit that like and subscribe button. Helps us out. You can also find all of our USC and all of our LA sports content at LAFBnetwork.com. Today, though, we are going to discuss how does this team rebound? How do they get back on track? How can they utilize this bye week to salvage what I think can still be a special season and still can be a very successful season? So we'll dive into that. Also, are there remnants of a past team that this team kind of resembles? I think there's some similarities from a team of yesteryear that if plays out correctly will bode very well for this program moving forward. Now, I know a lot of people have specific thoughts about Coach Riley and his style and obviously the defenses. But anyway, we'll get into that and kind of see where the chips fall as this thing continues to grow. So excited as always to talk USC with y'all. Rocking the Maeva lemon shirt. You can pick that up at our LAFB shop if you're interested. But yeah, go ahead, drop any comments you have. We will do viewer comments at the end of the show, like we've been doing now on every Tuesday noon show. So I'll go through some of those, and I've set up on our forum, on our message board, LAFBnetwork.com. The link is down below. We have a brand new message board where we'll be dropping intel, building community, having conversation. Go sign up for that. It's completely free. Like I said, link is in the description. And every week we'll post our viewer comments and post there, or you can post them, and then they'll get read on the show. You get featured here on the show. I want to make this possible, or it's made possible by you. So let's get back to answering your questions and whatnot. So, but drop any comments here live as we get into it. All right. So how does this team truly rebound? You know, we had our live call-in show last night at 7, myself and Tim. Thank you everyone that joined that. That was a lot of fun, really successful, and a good therapy session. I think got a lot of great calls on there. So I might repeat some of it if this is a different kind of viewer audience now that we're during the day. But a lot was said there, so check that out. But obviously defensively, like there was a real kind of come to Jesus moment in South Bend, specifically, obviously, with the run defense. Anytime you give up over 300 yards rushing, you're not going to win many football games. So I think the fact that USC was even in this game, I think speaks volumes on at least the fight and some of the talent level this team does have. But you're not gonna win games if you can't successfully run the football, and you're going to get gashed for 300 plus yards on the ground. And so during this bye week, you'll need to see, obviously, looking at this tape, it's not good. Not a lot of good tape out there defensively. And so how do you fix those run fits? Whether that's schematically, whether that's just being more gap sound, whether that's just being more physical. I mean, there's a lot of things now to take into this that they can correct and get better as they prepare now during this bye week and then next week going into Nebraska, which is going to be another tough battle on the road. So I think schematically, when you look at it, the part that I was a little bit perplexed by, and again, we're all sitting here watching either at the stadium, the press box, on TV, like we're not in those huddles or whatnot, but it was surprising how often this defense was still running nickel, 5 defensive backs. Obviously there were times with 3 linebackers on the field. It just felt like, knowing what the game plan was, knowing the weather, knowing what Notre Dame wanted to do, that like stack the box, like just like we saw against Michigan, where they kind of forced Bryce Underwood to beat you, forced CJ Carr to beat you. And had they done that successfully, I don't think he would have beaten them. I mean, CJ Carr did not look like a good quarterback on Saturday night. Granted, he's a freshman. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but on that particular night, 136 yards did not look like a good quarterback. So that to me was defensively like just playing schematically into what the offense is giving you. They clearly wanted to control the trenches and run the ball. The weather permitted that. That's Notre Dame style of football anyway. So how can you use this bye to say, okay, again, we don't, one thing, and this isn't defending that decision making, but personnel matters. Jaw Jarrett, who I know has been playing sparingly this season, so it's not like he was a starter, but didn't play this game with an injury. He was questionable going into it. That's a big body that certainly would have helped more frequently in kind of some of those defensive snaps. So Keyshawn Silver, we would like to see step up. I think Devin Tompkins, still played his tail off and what he was able to do. Judea Basseri, obviously doing what he can. So, but having a big body like a Jaw Jarrett would have helped do that a little bit more in terms of, running that schematically. So that's, I think, what you kind of have to look for is in this bye week is, getting back to those type of run fits that we saw against Michigan. And so that will certainly, I think, bode well. And one report that came out after the Michigan game is that Rob Ryan was a lot more, and I haven't spoken to anyone to confirm this. I saw a couple of reports out there. But Rob Ryan was much more instrumental in kind of that game plan with Dan Lynn. Now, I don't know if he was like all of a sudden not involved in this Notre Dame one. I don't know. But he had his fingerprints a lot more on and I think all the defensive coaches do every week. But a lot of what he was saying, and that's why we saw, I think, an improved linebacker play and schematically, a lot more usage of linebackers. Like even when they were in nickel, it was Eric Gentry mostly as the nickel and keeping Kamari Ramsey back there on the back end. Where in this Notre Dame game, we saw a lot more of Ramsey back in the nickel with Pierce and obviously Bishop Fitzgerald on the back end. So just kind of interesting. We'll see what they look at, but I think that's an easy way that they can get back on track. It's just playing to the strength of the offense. Like if the offense is going to do this, play to stop that. I saw someone comment on I think it was a different video or social media, but basically saying it felt like USC's defense was playing to stop both the run and the pass, but they didn't stop either. Whereas if they could have just stopped one, that would have at least been a little bit more successful. And I think that's, it sounds so simple, but it's very true. Like attack one and then see what the other one gives you. And it was like they were playing to kind of mitigate both. And they weren't really able. I mean, the passing game was not really there for Notre Dame, but they weren't able to mitigate the run game by any means. So we'll see how this defense responds. I'm excited to see how they respond. It was against Illinois. They got a bye. They responded emphatically against Michigan. Now they get a bye again to stew with it, to sit with it, and then we'll see how they respond against Nebraska on the road. Offensively, I think it was more so. We talked all last night about, some of the play calling and obviously the miscues there. Like that, I don't need to go into that again. Obviously, Coach Riley said it was stupid play calls. We talked about the fourth down play call decisions. They were just not good. So that is what it is. But I think offensively overall, it was an okay game. We're seeing obviously in this kind of matchup on the road, missing your top two running backs hurts. Love King Miller. Love his story. I do think he's a good back. He's not just like a flash in the pan fluke. That wasn't a fluke against Michigan. But Wayman Jordan, I think, is right now a tier above and would have had more success against Michigan, against Notre Dame, just because of his bigger body and his vision. And, King has great vision, but just not quite as big as Waymo. So I think that was clearly missing. I think missing Elijah Page is, caught up to them in this game. The offensive line still, I thought, played admirably. It wasn't like they got absolutely mauled and pushed around, but there are many cases where the guards were getting pushed back. Now they held their own once they got pushed back, but off the snap, there was multiple times where you see guards, already back in the backfield and then kind of plant down and were able to hold their own after that. But in the run game, when that happens, the backs get met as soon as you touch the ball. In the pass game, Maava can drop back a little more. And then when the offensive line is able to mitigate after that, then you can have some success. But in the run game, if you're getting pushed off immediately, then Notre Dame is meeting the running backs as they did all night right off the bat. So, we'll see if those adjustments. I think too, last thing on that, I think Jaden Mayava, I'd like to see him use his legs a little more. I think when he does, he's had some success. We've seen it in the red zone, obviously. There's some he's a big body, right? He's not like this fast, blazing fast running quarterback, but he has enough athleticism to move the sticks with his legs. And so in some of those situations, in those short yardage ones, like getting him in rollouts, or even just if nothing's there, instead of holding it, and then either throwing it away or forcing something, just run for 4 yards. Run for 4 yards and move on to the next play. Not every play needs to be a splash explosive. Sometimes those 3-yard QB scampers can help extend drives. Then you move the sticks more. So I'd like to see him use that, whether it's by design or whether it's just him mentally knowing like, okay, when I'm off my third read, if it's not there, I'm just going to go. Like I'm loving his maturation and his progressions. I think he's gotten so much better in reading through defenses, going through his progressions. Obviously, some of that's with the offensive line aiding in their blocking. But sometimes if the third or fourth isn't there, then just go. You don't got to keep waiting for hopefully someone to get open. So I think that is something too that can take some of the pressure off in the play calling in like a third and long situation, especially when weather's like that. I mean, we'll see what the weather's like in Lincoln in 2 weeks, but could be, it's fall in the Midwest. So it could be another rainy one out there. Who knows? So, we'll see if that is something that can add, because I think that would do well. I have a comparison, but first let's get to some of these. Thanks everyone for jumping in here. Got some comments in the chat. Let's see. Who do we want to see here? Sam Foreman, I don't think Nebraska has the defense to shut USC down for 4 quarters. I agree. I mean, I don't think anyone really has the defense to shut them down. I mean, yes, that fourth quarter, they kind of self-inflicted wounds, right? Killed them in this Notre Dame game. They still put up 24 points. Had they not had the turnover on downs, the interception, the fumble, which, give the defense credit, but some of those were just absolutely forced by USC. So I wouldn't say even Notre Dame, and this is not a dig, they played fantastic, but I don't think they shut them down. So I agree with you, Sam. I think and Notre Dame is a much better defense right now than Nebraska. So remember, Jaden Mayava's first start for USC was against Nebraska. They got the win at the Coliseum last year. So a little bit of familiarity there, obviously some new players, but we'll talk a lot about it next week. But another game where they're going to play a fairly inexperienced quarterback. Dylan Raiola obviously is a true sophomore, started all last year, but hasn't looked anything special yet. I think he's still growing, and this is a definitely an opportunity. I think the offense, to your point, Sam, like I'm not worried about the offense against Nebraska. This is an opportunity now for the defense to bounce back in a big way and prove they can stop the run and force a young quarterback yet again to attempt to beat them that way. And if they can do that, I think they'll come out okay. So we'll talk about that more next week. Brian Jacob, what's up? USC is better than Nebraska. If Riley can't win this game, he should be gone. I mean, they are better than Nebraska. I agree with you there, and they absolutely need to win this game. So, we'll get into more coaching talk and Riley. He won't be gone. Just because I think they're, that's a more future picture, but I get the sentiment. USC absolutely not only needs to win this game, but should win this game next week. So, yeah. Let's see here. David Orozco. I've lost all hope in Lincoln Riley. Weak defenses follow him every year. He coaches scared and tries to get too cute instead of just trusting his guys to win and keep things simple. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some truth to that. Until proven otherwise, we haven't seen an elite defense from Lincoln Riley. I think we've seen some decent ones when he was at Oklahoma, but definitely not elite. Obviously, haven't had one here yet at USC. Saw the improvement last year, and then almost seeing somewhat of a regression this year. So that's on the head coach. That's on the head coach for sure. So in terms of coaches scared, I don't, that's all speculative. That's your opinion. That's fine. I do agree that he gets too cute sometimes. Like obviously the play calling, we saw it with the trick play, and we've seen it in other games. I don't think against Michigan he was. Even last year, some of those close losses, I thought, he coached well enough. There just was some errors in personnel or whatnot, and just didn't have the horses at the end. But yeah, he's got to prove otherwise, right? We're at that point where prove otherwise. Anyone can say so much, whether it's against him or for him, but until you prove it and can win on the road, the record is what the record is, right? Bill Parcells always says, you are what your record is. That's what he is right now. So we shall see. Let's see here. Any other comments before we move on? What's up, LV? Always on. Love you, brother. Fine on, boys. Hope all is well. LV had a great call last night on the call-in show. So we, sorry, I'm just reading through these. It's harder to read through these and use them when you're a solo show. You don't have anyone else to talk while you're doing that. So, Mike, what up? Michigan fan. Mike Rotonda. I'm a Michigan fan. I saw 3 of your games, and you have a very good team. You should be winning games like the Notre Dame game. I don't know what is holding this team back from being elite again. That's the $1 million question, right? Or the $10 million question. I've said this multiple times, like this team and a lot of college teams, and this is just a fact, are different at home than they are on the road. I mean, look at Michigan, right, Mike? And I think you would agree with this. That Michigan game at USC, Michigan got absolutely slobber knocked. Then they go back home the next week and slobber knock a very good Washington team, a 5-1 good Washington team. They controlled the trenches. The Michigan defensive line looked like a Michigan defensive line, where they didn't the week prior against USC in Los Angeles. So, I mean, this is a somewhat of a epidemic among college programs. The few elite coaches that have proven themselves are the ones that can stave that off and play similar on the road as they do at home. I don't think there's any team out there that is like dominant on the road, but obviously the Ohio States of the world, Indiana so far with Kurt Cignetti, like they've been able to play at least their style of game on the road and at home. Lincoln Riley USC hasn't been able to do that yet. And so when they're able to do that, that is when they can get back to being elite. I think they have the talent growing. I do believe in the coaches in terms of development, but for whatever reason on the road, it just has fallen flat. And so that is where that next step comes. We saw last year the step come of like, okay, being in every game. And I know everyone hated hearing it, but in every game, 1 possession games, they didn't come out how they wanted, but they were a team that could beat anybody and they could lose to anybody. But I think that was a step. Now it's okay, you got to win some tough road games. I said last night, like when you want to be an elite team, you got to win every home game. You got to win every game you're favored in. And then you got to win 1 upset. Or if you're like Ohio State, where you're always favored, don't get upset. But, USC was a 10.5 dog at Notre Dame. They were, I believe, I can't remember the spread, but they were a favorite at Illinois. So that's a game you got to win. You're favored on the road. They'll probably be favored at Nebraska. That's a road game you got to win. That's what starts separating you. And this isn't a defense, but gone are the days of college football where you're going to have one team go, well, we'll see if Ohio State does, but where you'll have a few teams that are just like so head and shoulders above everyone else. So you just got to be 11-1, 10-2, and not have those letdowns against teams you should beat. So, and I said this last night with Notre Dame, and I'm kind of all over the place, but had USC lost to Notre Dame, even by the same score, let's say the score was the exact same, 34-24. but they were more sound in the run game. Like it was how they lost, I think, that has fans so riled up with this coaching staff, because it goes right back to the narrative that's been with this program and this team for so long. Had they been able to control the run better and CJ Carr maybe just made a couple of nice plays, I think it would have been, not anyone would have been happy. You still need to win the game, but it wouldn't have been as maybe painful as it was just seeing the way they lost. So, but let's turn this a little bit positive now. That's what I do. I like to be positive. I'm not a fire guy or fire everyone guy, mainly because I'm a realist and that's not going to happen. This team, in a way, reminds me of a past USC team. And before we get to that, really quick, let's talk about our friends over at Sleeper. Guys, you're all there. You've heard me talk about Sleeper before. Make sure to download the Sleeper app, #1 sports app today. Not just for season-long fantasy. You also get in-game live score updates. They have a chat feature, but the daily fantasy is where it's all about. It's a live pick 'em, pick 2 to 8 players. You're just choosing more or less, and you can win real money. So when you go to make your first deposit, make sure to use the promo code USC LAFB. It's going to give you a match bonus up to $100. You can put in 10 if you want. They'll give you 10 free dollars. You can put in up to 100 and they will match you that. Plus, when your first sign up, you're going to get a free $20 entry. No deposit even needed. You can stack them both. So you get the free 20 plus the match bonus. But if you don't want to deposit yet and you want to wait to save that promo code, just go sign up today and you'll get a free $20 entry. All right. So I've said many times, I don't love always, everyone's kind of living still in this, the Pete Carroll era, which I get. I mean, it was the best era in college football, especially obviously for USC, but just in terms of just college football in general, I think it was a great era. And I've said, college football is different. You got to move past that. That was 2 decades ago. We can remember it and love it, but it's never going to get back to that. So I'm kind of going against my grain here and comparing to that. But this team has the ability to be similar to that 2002 team that went 11-2 and won the Orange Bowl, I believe, against Iowa. Now, that was Pete Carroll's second year. Okay, so bear with me here through this. Obviously, this is Lincoln Riley's 4th year. However, when you look at the state of the program, this is more like his second year. And, everyone that shouldn't be, right? Obviously. But that the true second year was really like resetting it back to year 0. Because you had year 1 that really surprised everyone, right? Caleb Williams' Heisman year. They kind of ran it back with that mentality, with the transfer portal, with obviously Grinch as DC. And then year 2 just set them back. They set backwards, right? Finished 7-5. So they really tore the thing back down to the studs and rebuilt for year 3. I mean, right? Whole new coaching staff on defense, starting different NIL initiatives, all these different things. So really last year was like year 1. And I know no one wants to hear that, but it's just kind of the facts of it. That was the true kind of rebuild year. They go 6-6 in every game, competitive, just not quite there yet. So this now in year 2, sitting at 5-2, have the absolute ability to finish 10-2 and either make the playoff at 10-2 or a New Year's 6 bowl. I think that's a successful year. And then you go into year 3, now ready for the college football playoff. And year 3 of Pete Carroll's when they won the Natty, beating Michigan in the Rose Bowl. When you look at that 2002 year, their 2 losses came on the road, obviously, somewhat early in the year. Their second loss was at Washington State, the Cougars, and they lost 30-27 to fall to 3-2 on the season. But there was a lot of angst at that time. Pete Carroll, he went 6-6 the year prior. Now they're sitting 3-2. In that game, Washington State had 516 total yards. They had 201 yards rushing, gashed. John Tippins, 12 attempts, 79 yards. Jermaine Green, 6 attempts, 92 yards, 15.3 yards per carry average. Sounds familiar, right? Feels familiar. Defense got gashed. 500 plus yards. Well, they turned the season around and won out. Right? Didn't lose again. And then the dynasty that was USC and Pete Carroll began. In that moment, after losing to Washington State, being 3-2, then they rebound. And they lost to Kansas State in Manhattan on their third game of the year. So after that Washington State game, they beat Cal at home. They beat Washington at home. They beat Oregon in Eugene in late October. They beat Stanford in Palo Alto, beat Arizona State, beat UCLA at the Rose Bowl, and beat Notre Dame at home. 44-13, by the way. And then go on to beat Iowa, like I said, in the Orange Bowl and finish as a top 5 ranked team. Now, I don't know if we've seen enough from this team that has me believe they can do that and win out against some really good opponents. I mean, at Nebraska, they're 5-2. Northwestern is 5-2. Northwestern coming to Collie after that, they're 5-2. Iowa, 5-2. At Oregon, 1 loss, tough game. UCLA is like the hottest team in college football right now. So it is going to be a tough task to do. But they have the chance now to emulate Pete Carroll's second year and go and win out and run the table. And whether they make the playoff or not, 10-2, they'll be in a big bowl game and setting themselves up with this 26 class coming in to then be a true title contender going in the next year. That'd be a success. That'd be great. But as I said before, can this team do that? So I brought up that Washington State loss in 22 because you can see the similarities. 500 plus yards, 200 yards on the ground. The defense gave up, and then they improved. Then they bounced. So how does this coaching staff now make that happen? Flip that switch to where this was unacceptable. We can't do this again. And the way you do that, as I kind of said earlier, some of the things schematically and yada, yada, but also which players are going to step up as leaders. And not saying they haven't, but who's going to really step up? Everyone says all the time, good teams are coach-led teams, great teams are player-led teams. So who of these captains and these players are going to really step up and kind of put the team on their back and saying, hey, we can still do something special here. I think back to that, and it doesn't even have to be public. It's not like, I know everyone wants to hear this fiery podium speech or whatever. It doesn't have to be that. It needs to be within the confines of the team. But I think back to that moment, that Florida Gators moment. I can't remember what year it was, but when they were on their run with Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow, and after a loss, Tebow's on the podium, just incensed and passionate. Like, I will never let this team lose again. Like, no one will work harder than I will work to make sure we accomplish our goal. Which players are going to step up and do that? And I believe they have the leadership to do it. Again, it doesn't have to be an incensed, passionate speech on the podium. But when the players can lead like that, then that's when we'll see, I think, this team take that next step. They talked after the Illinois in the bye week. We talked to Riley and Lynn, and they talked about accountability and guys holding themselves accountable. Well, they got to do that again and pick themselves back up and say, okay, we've done this twice now. We can't do this again. This is it. Buck stops here. That was it. Every week, we're holding ourselves accountable. We're doing the little things. We're being gap sound. So they have everything in front of them. Everything in front of them. All right, let's get to some of these user comments from the previous week. like I said, moving forward, check out our forum. The link is in the description, or just go to LAFBnetwork.com, click on the forum. Got our USC message board there, and I'll start, posting a thread there that everyone can comment in, and questions, thoughts. We'll use that hopefully moving forward if we get enough action in there for user comments. So, all right. Barry Fisher, my guy, he is a member. You can become a member. It helps us out a lot. Become a member right here on USC LAFB YouTube, or become a member over on, join our community on LAFBnetwork.com. But shout out, Barry. Family therapy indeed. This is in regard to our call-in show last night. The kickoff return was awful and turned the game around. And I think we made the same mistake as we did with Illinois. That is trying to stop both. Oh, this is where I saw it. Okay. This is why I talked about this earlier, Barry. That is trying to stop both run and pass and not stopping either. We probably were too afraid of Carr. We should have played them downhill, loading the box, but it's easy to say. I probably need to go back and watch more carefully. The idea being load the box, get them in 3rd and long, and then go after the QB. Sounds simple in theory. And then he says, Tim, don't dismiss the gutty little Bruins. We should beat them, but hubris is SC's biggest downfall. So, yeah, this is where I mentioned on this earlier, Barry, and it was your comment. So thank you. But yeah, it felt like they were trying to stop both, and in doing so, they weren't able to stop either, really. I mean, they stopped the pass. The pass was really no threat all game. But it felt like it should have just been an all-out attack on the running game. Like, put 9 in the box. If they end up beating you on a pass play, well, okay, they got you. Just don't get gashed like that. So, yeah, unfortunate. Moda P001, 8-4, Ryan. These guys have a hard time on the road. Most teams do. Don't have the horses yet, especially the linebackers. Linebackers got blown out. They were out of position and not very physical. Rob Ryan needs to do a better job. Matt Entz can coach. Fight on. We briefly talked about this last night as well, but I'll talk about it again. Matt Entz is a phenomenal coach. I mean, that was a big loss. And it was even more unfortunate, the timing of the loss, right? He announced he's taking the Fresno State job on signing day. Brutal there, but he was a really good coach. Really good development. Obviously, where he came from at North Dakota State as a DC and then becoming the head coach. I mean, that is a true college developmental grinder. Rob Ryan is a professional coach. Been in the NFL for 25 plus years. He talked about when he got hired here. He hasn't been in the college ranks since Oklahoma State 25 years ago. So even him, there might be some growing pains going from that amount of NFL where you're working with professionals and then coming back to the college ranks. That doesn't mean he's not a good coach. I agree with the comment. He's going to have to do a better job in getting these guys prepared. And I've talked a bunch. This is a young room outside of Gentry. We were going to see growing pains from them as well. So I do think we'll see improvement. I know no one wants to be patient. I get that. But this room specifically, when you have a guy going from the pros to college and a really young room overall, there's going to be some growing pains, but that room has to be better because that second level has got to be better in order to slow down some of these run fits. And they were better against Michigan. So that's why it was so odd, the regression so much last week. So we'll see, but I do think it's a talented room. I do trust Rob Ryan. I mean, he's going to be probably a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best coaches out there. It's just, some growing pains going from the NFL to the collegiate level. And, but I do think he'll be fine developing some of these kids. And, I know no one cares about next year right now, but we've got some really good linebackers coming in that you're going to be able to develop with that side as well. So, yeah, so we'll see. But I still trust in Rob Ryan. I think he's a phenomenal coach. Matt Entz was a loss for sure. I mean, he's a really good coach. The problem with, obviously, no one cares if you can't develop the guys, but the problem with Entz is he wasn't really a recruiter, which will be interesting to see how his time really goes at Fresno State. They're playing good ball right now. But I mean, I talked to multiple people that not that he was didn't care, but basically wasn't. Nowadays in recruiting, right? You got to always be checking in on kids, always calling, always doing this. And he wasn't about that. So Rob Ryan, I think, will be more into that. It seems like he was really enjoying it this offseason. We'll see what that looks like moving forward. But obviously the thing that matters most is development. and how you develop these kids. I believe he will do that. I just think there's been a little bit of a change going from working with professionals for 25 years to now 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. It is a difference, but I think he'll get it right. Before the price kickoff, this is SN for RL277. I'm sure that stands for something. Before the price kickoff return in the third quarter, USC looked like they had some momentum, but when they showed the sideline after Price's kickoff return, you could see the defeat on the faces of the USC offense. The momentum changed on that play, and it showed. The final 4 drives for USC ended with 3 turnovers and a failed 4th down conversion. It's a good point. The broadcast brought up multiple times. It felt like throughout the game that there were multiple opportunities for a team to seize momentum and just weren't able to do so. And then it felt like USC had seized the momentum on that touchdown, 59-yard dime from Mayava to Lane to take the lead, to go up in this game for the first, or after the first drive, for the first time since the first drive. And on the very next play, you give up a 100-yard kickoff return. And yeah, you could just feel the deflation, especially to lose it like that on one play. And so this goes back to what I was saying about player leadership. Who of the players then are going to step up and say, okay, back to work? And, I'm sure there were guys saying that. But player-led, that's where you turn those moments around. Coaches can rah-rah and yell and do so much. They can only do so much, especially in the game. In terms of engaging and this is my opinion. I know guys, some people won't agree with me, but in those moments, that's who's your player leaders to take the momentum back, to seize the momentum back, to get your guys up. Okay, here we go. Back to work. I can tell, here's an example. Super Bowl, whatever, 53, Falcons, Eagles. Not Falcons, Eagles, excuse me. Falcons, Patriots. 27-3. Everyone knows it, right? Patriots come storming back. As good of a coaching staff as the Patriots had, and obviously Bill Belichick, I know he's fallen from grace now, but during that time, he obviously a Hall of Fame coach with the Patriots. Talk to anyone. It was not because of Bill Belichick or any on that coaching staff that the Patriots came back. Now, they still had to coach things and call plays and schematically be efficient, not run dumb trick plays. So they still had to do their job. But it was Tom Brady and the belief in the guys that brought that team back. So I'm excited to see who on this team is going to step up as those leaders to when those momentum shifts happen. They don't flinch. They don't move. I've seen it more this year in some of those moments, right? Michigan State, they came roaring back, and then USC had that beautiful drive, put the clamps on, and then put the game away. Purdue, there was some push, and they put the clamps on. So now that they're in some real adversity, middle of the season, which players are going to lead and get this thing back right? Final one. Oh, this has to do with the AP poll. How is Michigan? I know there's a Michigan fan in here watching. How is Michigan ahead of USC? Head-to-head loss. And SC has better losses than Michigan on the road, both ranked. Yes, SC not being ranked should not help them to be ahead of SC at 25. Hypocrisy. So this is with the AP poll, which is just always a mess in my opinion. USC now falls out of the top 25. Michigan jumps back into the top 25 after beating Washington, but losing just a week ago to USC by 3 scores. It is what it is. USC wins out. It won't totally matter. I still think people that say the AP doesn't matter are wrong. It absolutely matters when it comes to narratives, when it comes to resume, when it comes to what the CFB committee actually is basing resumes off. I'm not saying they only use the AP poll. There's a lot of metrics that can go into it. But when you're watching a game and you're like, oh yeah, this team plays 5 ranked opponents, that's based on the AP poll. When you're talking about, oh, look at the SEC, how many ranked opponents, how tough that schedule is, that's based on the AP poll. So, I'm against it anymore. I don't think it's a valuable metric. I think the history of it's great. I think the fact that, you have these writers of America and these beat writers that are able to kind of have the ability to put their stamp on some of this, but not enough of them do a good enough job. And, it's posted all the time what people vote and how egregious some of the polls are. Some are really good. I think some take it really seriously, but some, it's clear basically at 10 p.m. are like, oh, let me just input some of these teams and, be off with it. So should SC be ranked? 2 ranked losses, hey people, just beat Michigan, who is now ranked. It is what it is. They'll be fine. Go beat Michigan. If they beat Nebraska on the road next week, they'll be back in the top 25. So it'll all take care of itself. But yeah, I just think it's a sham at this point. It just is. So, all right. Well, I think that will do it for today's edition of USC LAFB Live. Thank you, everyone, as always, for hanging out. Loving doing this midday. We'll be back I'll be back Thursday at noon, same time. Plus Madman and Tim tomorrow night live call-in show again, Wednesday night. As I mentioned, I'll be at practice later today. I'll be at practice tomorrow. So we'll talk to Lincoln Riley. We'll talk to Dan Lynn. We'll talk to offense and defensive players. We'll get some injury updates going into the bye, hopefully. I saw someone, here we go, Trojan fight. Any idea if Paige will be back after the bye? Kind of shocking he has missed so many games. We'll see if we get confirmation, but based on the fact that he dressed, but was just more of an emergency, he'll, in my opinion, play against Nebraska. So he dressed against Notre Dame, so he was available if emergency needed, but just didn't want to put him in that limelight, I guess, not fully 100%. So having another full week off with the bye and then going next week, I think he'll be good. So we should see at Nebraska back to the starting 5. Paige at left, Tobias Raymond moving back to left guard. We'll see about Killian O'Connor. He was also questionable, which wasn't just out. So a potential, he's progressing, I think, maybe quicker. I would still maybe pump the brakes on there a week or two, but potentially O'Connor. If not, I think Reed looked a lot better last week and the previous 2 weeks. And then Alani Noah at right and Justin Tana moving from left back over to right tackle. So we shall see, but I'll have any updates on that. And we'll see how Wayman Jordan's progressing. Obviously it's going to be another, 3 to 5 weeks, unfortunately. So we'll see how this running back room continues to look with King Miller, Brian Jackson, and, Harry Dalton got a couple touches as a true freshman. So do have some depth there still, and hopefully they can rebound against Nebraska. But we got plenty of time to talk about that. Thank you guys always for hanging out. Have a fantastic rest of your day. If you have not already, please hit that like and subscribe button here on the USC LAFB channel. Helps us out a ton. Become a member. That's crazy amount of support for us. You'll get a discount merch code if you want this shirt, plus our other USC shirts. Or you can join our community over at LAFBnetwork.com. Make sure to check out the new message board there as we're building that up as well. Everyone enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. As always, family, fight on.